Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova launched a broad diplomatic offensive condemning Western policies on multiple fronts during her weekly briefing in Moscow. She asserted that ongoing discussions among G7 nations about utilizing frozen Russian state assets to finance Ukraine's military efforts reveal a fundamental weakness, indicative of a lack of resources and strategic direction among Kyiv's allies. Zakharova framed these deliberations as an overt attempt to unlawfully confiscate the approximately $300 billion in Russian central bank funds that were frozen at the outset of the conflict. She issued a stern warning that Moscow would implement significant retaliatory measures if any plan to redirect either the interest or the principle of these assets toward Ukrainian reconstruction is enacted. The criticism extended to the London Coalition of the Willing conferences, which Russia's view as a thinly veiled effort by Western nations to profit from the ongoing war under the guise of providing military and financial support to Ukraine. Beyond the immediate conflict, Zakharova also directed sharp criticism towards Moldova, accusing its government of engaging in historical revisionism. This accusation stemmed from the demolition of Soviet-era monuments, an act Moscow interprets as an affront to shared history and an alleged glorification of individuals who collaborated with wartime enemies. On the digital front, speaking at the Dialogue on Fakes 3.0 forum, Zakharova argued that Russia's investment in its own digital sovereignty was a crucial defensive measure. Without it, she claimed Russia could have been forced out of the global digital space. She accused Western nations of weaponizing generative technologies to manipulate informations, disseminate disinformations on a massive scale, and effectively reprogram consciousness. This, she described, is a sophisticated special mechanism designed to legitimize falsehoods by laundering them through traditional and established media outlets, creating a distorted reality for global audience. The forum itself, held on October 29th, underscored the growing global clash between the open, often chaotic nature of digital networks and the state-controlled dissemination of traditional knowledge and informations, highlighting a key ideological battleground in the broader conflicts. Western governments, in response, have consistently maintained that their financial and military measures are not acts of aggression or profiteering, but are necessary and legal actions aimed squarely at supporting Ukraine's inherent right to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity against foreign invasions. The battlefields of eastern Ukraine have become the epicenter of a brutal and grinding war of attrition, with Russian forces intensifying their assaults on key Ukrainian strongholds. The strategic city of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk region now faces what Ukrainian soldiers on the ground describe as close to critical conditions. As a vital logistic hub and a cornerstone of the last major defensive arc in the Donbass, alongside Kramatorsk and Slovyansk, its potential fall would represent a significant political and psychological blow to Kyiv, according to Russian analyst Alexander Mikhailov. Russian troops have been closing in on the city for weeks, employing a strategy of deploying numerous small, mobile assault groups to probe and penetrate Ukrainian lines, aiming to sever crucial supply routes. Despite what Kyiv reports as staggering human costs for the attacking forces, the Russian offensive continues relentlessly. Ukraine's army chief confirmed the escalating intensity of the attack, stating that defensive positions are being strengthened, but reiterate that the primary military objective remains the preservation of soldiers' lives. In a similar vein, fighting has intensified dramatically around the Kupyansk axis, where Russian forces claim to have achieved a major tactical victory by encircling a significant number of Ukrainian troops. The Russian Defense Ministry released drone footage purporting to show the capture of Vishnevov village in the Dnipropetrovsk region, claiming control over hundreds of buildings, a development not yet confirmed by Kyiv. This ground assault is being complemented by a sophisticated psychological warfare campaign. Russian drones have been observed dropping leaflets over Ukrainian positions near Kupyansk, urging soldiers to surrender to prevent senseless bloodshed. This psychological pressure was dramatically amplified when Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that Ukrainian forces numbering up to 18 battalions near Kupyansk and another 31 near Krasnoarmeysk were trapped. Chief of the Russian General Staff Valery Gerasimov detailed the scale of these alleged encirclements, listing elite airborne and mechanized units among those purportedly cut off. While Ukrainian military analyst Alexander Kovalenko acknowledged the difficulty of the situation, he maintained it was not irreversible, highlighting the ongoing fierce resistance against overwhelming Russian numbers as Ukraine scrambled to reinforce its beleaguered defenses ahead of the unforgiving winter season. The skies over Ukraine burned as Russia unleashed one of its most extensive aerial bombardment in months, deploying over 700 drones and missiles in a coordinated overnight assault targeting multiple regions. The southeastern city of Zaporizhzhia bore a heavy brunt of the attack, where missile strikes tore through residential areas, injuring at least 13 people, including 6 children. The assault destroyed a dormitory and damaged 5 apartment buildings, shattering the nighttime calm and leaving emergency crews to work through smoldering debris. The attack also crippled critical power infrastructure, leading to the implementation of nationwide electricity restriction as Ukraine's energy grid suffered massive damage. Ukrainian officials assert that this targeting of the energy sector is a deliberate strategy by Moscow to weaken civilian resilience and morale as the freezing temperature of winter approached. In Kherson, a children's hospital was struck, wounding 9 people in what President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned as a deliberate act, proving that Moscow does not want peace. Explosions from anti-aircraft fire illuminate the night sky over the capital, Kyiv, forcing residents into shelters in the early hours. The widespread nature of the attack, which also hit regions as far west as Lviv, prompted President Zelensky to accuse Moscow of attempting to destroy everything and to issue an urgent plea for stronger and more rapid Western military support. This aerial onslaught is being intensified by Russia's increasing resilience on new glide bombs, a deadly innovation that transforms old Soviet-era munitions into precision weapons. These bombs, released from aircraft at a distance, are difficult for Ukrainian air defenses to intercept and are reportedly changing the tactical dynamics of the war, allowing Russia to strike fortified positions with devastating accuracy. Against this backdrop of escalating conflict, Maria Zakharova stated that Russia is being forced to develop and modernize its own strategic deterrents, such as the Boroviznik nuclear-powered cruise missiles and the Poseidon underwater system. She argued these developments are a defensive necessity, a direct response to NATO's destabilizing military actions near Russia's border, which she claims are undermining global security and fueling a new arms race. In a move widely interpreted as a calculated psychological operation, Russian President Vladimir Putin offered to open the battlefield to international scrutiny, proposing a temporary localized ceasefire. The proposal specifically invited foreign and Ukrainian journalists to visit the areas around Pokrovsk, Kupyansk, and Dmitrovsk, where Moscow claims to have encircled tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. The Kremlin announced its force would suspend fighting for 5 to 6 hours humanitarian pause to grant unrestricted media access, allowing the world, in Putin's words, to see the truth of the situation on the ground. This offer was framed as an opportunity for Ukraine to make a responsible decision regarding its trapped troops, with Putin's explicitly referencing the 2022 siege of the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol as a precedent. However, the offer has been met with deep skepticism from Kyiv and Western analysts, who have labeled it a cynical propaganda exercise. Kyiv has flatly rejected the claim of encirclement, viewing the proposal as a tactic to sow panic, pressure Ukrainian forces into surrendering, and shape the international narrative by showcasing Ukrainian losses. Analysts have noted that any media access would be tightly controlled and escorted by the Russian military, making independent verification of the situation virtually impossible. The gambit comes at a time when Ukraine is facing a severe and growing manpower crisis. According to data from Poland's border guard, nearly 100,000 military-aged Ukrainian men, specifically between the age of 18 and 22, have fled the country in the past 2 months alone. This exodus follows a controversial decision by President Vladimir Zelensky's government in late August to relax certain travel restrictions that were initially put in place to preserve the nation's pool of available military manpower. This stark figure highlights the immense strain the protracted war is placing on Ukrainian society and its ability to sustain its defense. The juxtaposition of Russia's confident challenge on the one hand and Ukraine's pressing demographic and military recruitment challenges on the other paints a grim picture of an endurance test for Kyiv as the conflict grinds on with no end in sight. If you have made it this far, congratulations, you have unlocked the truth. I want to ask you a quick question though. With Russia claiming Encirclement near Kupyansk and launching massive drone strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, is Moscow on the verge of a decisive breakthrough, and why? Join the debate. We want to hear your insightful opinion on where this is all heading in our community. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Like the video, hit the notification bell, and most importantly, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.